Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Geoff Palmer, CEO and founder of Clean Machine, plant-based fitness nutrition. We're going to be looking at a really cool study. Just came out 2024, so brand new study, just came out last month. But before we get started, of course, let's go ahead and get the disclaimer. This video is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. All right. So back in 2023, we saw the study, the twins study, and there was a Netflix documentary on it looking at the cardiometabolic effects of an omnivorous diet compared to vegan diets. All right, well, that one was looking just at the cardiometabolic effects of the data collected from the sets of twins. And in that study, they showed vegan participants shed about 4 more pounds of weight loss than omnivores, and their insulin levels actually dropped by 20% more, even though the carbohydrate intake was higher. And that's because complex carbohydrates actually have a beneficial effect, by and large, in coming from whole plant foods on our insulin. But more importantly, I think for what the outcome and the title of the study back in 2023 was that those on a vegan diet had lower LDL cholesterol, and that dropped by an average of 15 milligrams in just 8 weeks. So it was an 8-week study, just 2 months long, and it showed very pronounced effects very quickly. So this was interesting because both of the twins are biologically very similar, about as similar as you can get for a study, and both of them obviously the same age, both of them the same gender, a lot of similarities. So you don't have to account for that in the different variations for the study. So it's a really convincing study. But this one is using the data collected during that study. So it's using the twins data, but it's looking at a whole different thing. So this is a 2024 study. It is not the 2023 study that many of you may already be familiar with the Netflix documentary. This actually is looking at the data in epigenetic impact on aging. So here's the title of the study and the link below in green, unveiling the epigenetic impact of a vegan versus an omnivore diet on aging. So this is the insights from the twins nutritional study out of Stanford. So interestingly, this study examined the impact of an entirely plant-based, a healthy plant-based, and a healthy omnivorous diet. So they looked at making both of them healthy. So not one side eating junk food that would skew the data for health reasons. And it looked at only 8 weeks, not measured blood DNA methylation. So this is like changes or damage or aging, so to speak, of the DNA, our cellular structures that are going to reproduce copies of our cells as we go along, as we age, and how well our body, our DNA can reproduce good copies means we'll age better. So that's the simple gist of it. It's a little bit more complex than that, but that's the basic idea. Damage or slight damage to the DNA affect copies, and that shows the degradation or the aging on a cellular level. Okay, so what did they find? They found this was the results. Distinct responses were observed when the vegan cohort, that's the group of vegans, exhibiting significant decreases in overall epigenetic age acceleration. Okay, what is epigenetics? Epi meaning above, and genetics meaning our genes. So above our genes, meaning these things that can actually change the actions of our genes. So epigenetics can turn on or off a gene. Epigenetics controls some things. Now, epigenetics can be influenced by our microbiome. Epigenetics can be influenced by our diet. Epigenetics can be influenced by exercise. And epigenetics can even be influenced by things like sleep, quality of air and water that we intake, and even mood, happiness, how well we impact with others, the release of oxytocin and other hormones in our body. All of these things can affect our epigenetics. A really amazing study was done quite a little while ago that showed just a single meal can change or switch up to 500 different epigenetic mechanisms in our body. So epigenetics can change rapidly, including in a single meal. Well, this is what's interesting about this particular study, because it was an 8-week study, which normally you say, oh, that's a short study. That's not a very good study. Well, actually, in this case, this is a really good study because it's important to look at short studies to see how quickly change happens within a short period of time. Most studies they think are quality studies are over a long period of time, so it looks at a larger data set, right? This you got more information to give you a more positive certainty that it's called a degree of certainty, the degree of certainty of how that influence is happening. But when you look at shorter term data, what you can see is something changing very quickly, or how much it changes within a short period of time. Meaning, in this case, how much of the diet quickly impacted our body's epigenetics and our aging. Okay, so let's look at the conclusions of the study. And this study suggests that short-term vegan diet is associated with epigenetic age benefits and reduced caloric intake. Now, reduction of caloric intake is also associated with extended age or longevity and improved health over long periods of times. But over 8 weeks, caloric restriction wouldn't probably have as much impact, and the amount of caloric intake that was reduced was minimal. Okay, so we're seeing, though, clearly a vegan diet or a plant-exclusive diet, meaning only plants, had a pretty immediate effect on epigenetics. So these short-term studies are really good at showing the immediate health benefits of the vegan diet. But they noted in this study that further research should explore long-term effects of vegan diets on epigenetic health and overall well-being, considering the importance of proper nutrition supplement. So fortunately, we do have that. So this study came out last year. The association between plant-based dietary pattern and biological aging trajectory. That's how quickly we are aging over a period of time in a large prospective cohort. Okay, we're looking at a large group of data. This is 12,784 participants, and over a good amount of period of time. You're looking at 4 time points within an 8-year period. So a big group of people, a long time. So this is that type of long-term study to see the impacts of a plant-based diet when compared to omnivores. So what did they find? In this study, they found the conclusions. We found that adopting a plant-based dietary pattern, especially when it's rich in healthful plant foods, whole plant foods, generally high in polyphenols, which are dark greens and colored fruits and vegetables, was associated with a substantially lowered pace of aging. Basically, the more plants you ate, the slower the pace of aging. Okay, but that was just one study. So let's take a look at other studies that go all the way back to 2013, because we've been looking at this for a while about how this affects our cardiometabolic health. And cardiometabolic health plays a big factor on our lifespan because obviously heart attacks, #1 cause of death, cardiovascular disease, #1 cause of death of people globally. So when we look at cardiovascular health, we're looking at the blood vessels, vascular blood vessels, right? All right, so let's look into this study because this was interesting. Because the thesis of this study, I'll put it up here, was the assumption was, hey, wait a minute, we see those consuming fish and or fish oil had an association, higher intakes of DHA and EPA, those are your omega-3s that are found in fish and fish oil, has been associated with reduced arterial stiffness. Now, why arterial stiffness? Okay, so our blood vessels expand when we need more blood and they contract when we need the blood faster. When we're under stress, we constrict our blood vessels. And when we are exercising, we expand our blood vessels because we need a larger volume of nutrients, of glucose, of oxygen to our muscles. So we expand our the blood vessel dilate, increase the size of it. So the body's ability to shrink and open up the blood vessels is really important. And this is called arterial stiffness. If it's stiff, it means it's really hard to expand or contract. And this is what results in what we call hypertension or high blood pressure, because it starts to harden in a squeezed down space, and now it won't budge. And when you really need that blood flow, all it does is increase the pressure, right? The body is sending the blood through those smaller space. Think of it as a hose. If you ever squeeze a hose, you see what happens. It comes out a lot faster. The water comes out a lot faster through the hose. That's basically what's going on in our arteries. When you squeeze down the arteries, that blood pressure increases. The pressure of that water coming out the hose, the pressure of that blood coming through our blood vessels, that's high blood pressure in a nutshell. So this vascular health, our body's ability to have arterial relaxation and contraction, the opposite of that, the degenerative part of it, the disease part of that, is arterial stiffness. Okay, so their assumption, remember this, their assumption was that fish oil, high in DHA, was linked to reduced arterial stiffness. But when they were looking at vegans, they said, oh, wait a minute. If vegans don't consume preformed DHA from fish or algae, well, then they must have worse arterial health because they're not consuming fish. They're not getting preformed EPA and DHA from fish, fish oil, or animal products. So that was the assumption of them, and they were setting out to prove that. So they measured the arterial health of both vegans and omnivores. So we tested this hypothesis in vegans who eat no fish or other sources of EPA and DHA, meaning they weren't supplementing with EPA or DHA from algae, so that we're not included in this study, and to see if vegans who had lower amounts of EPA and DHA. Okay, so what did they look at? They looked at 171 vegans and 165 omnivores, all healthy men in the range from 18 to 80 years old. Now, in the study, they saw that vegan men tend to be younger, and the vegan men tend to be a little bit better in BMI. So they said, well, that's not a fair comparison. So they actually excluded some people, and we compared only the vegan men that were matched by age and BMI with the omnivore controls to make it an even comparison. Okay, so what did they find? In conclusion, these results refute the hypothesis that arterial stiffness is increased by lack of fish and other sources of EPA and DHA in the vegan diet. And they went on to say even further, indeed, there was tentative evidence to suggest that arterial aging was slower in vegans. Not only did vegans have less arterial stiffness than those consuming fish or fish oil or taking preformed EPA or DHA, but they had slower aging of their arteries. That's right. Aging of the arteries could lead to collapse or damage of the arteries, which can lead to all kinds of things, including stroke or heart attacks. So they set out to prove that because vegans aren't taking EPA and DHA, that they would have worse off in arterial stiffness, and they proved just the opposite, that vegans actually had superior arterial health. And not only that, that just in this short period of time of the study, they found that they were actually aging slower in their arteries, which was even more important. Okay, but that's just, again, one study on that. Let's look at the Carvo study, because this came out 3 years later than that 2013 study. And this one, too, looked at arterial disease, carotid, the artery going to the the carotid vascular disease and arterial stiffness in vegetarian men. Links down below in green. And here's the results of that study. They found that just like in the previous study, veg men had lower body mass index, had lower systolic and diastolic. These are the two measures of blood pressure. So their blood pressure was lower, both on the systolic and diastolic. Their fasting serum total cholesterol was lower. Their LDL cholesterol was lower. Their HDL cholesterol was better. Their apolipoprotein, or ApoB, this is one of the main drivers of looking at arterial plaques formation. Their glucose level was better. Their hemoglobin values were better, all in comparison to omnivore individuals. So just about every single measure and metric for cardiovascular health, the veg men were better off than those on an omnivore diet. And they even state as much in the conclusion sections of the study. A veg diet is associated with a more favorable cardiovascular disease biomarker profile and better vascular structural and functional parameters. Means the health and our functionality of our arteries in those consuming a vegetarian diet were improved. Okay, but what about macro? What about the macros in our diet? Does the amount of carbohydrates matter? Does the amount of fats matter? Does the amount of protein matter? That's a good question. And they answered that question a little bit in this rather large study that also came out just this year. This is the study called Dietary Protein Intake in Midlife in Relation to Healthy Aging. So again, this is looking at aging and how protein affects aging. The results from the prospective nurses health study cohort, linked down below. Okay, so what did they find? They did find that healthy aging was, first, the parameters. Healthy aging for them is defined as being free from 11 major chronic disease states. That's how they were measuring. Okay, if you are free of these 11 chronic and having good mental health and not having any physical impairments, either cognitive or physical, this would be considered healthy aging. Okay, so that was the parameters they set to say how many were doing it. It was a big study, 48,762 people that were aged 60 years in 1984. Okay, the good news is they found protein intake was significantly associated with higher odds of healthy aging. So having a decent amount of protein, not too much, but a decent amount of protein did increase healthy aging. So that was important. And we know protein is important. We know it's important for the whole lifespan. Okay, but what type of protein? That's probably even more important. So they broke it apart. They actually looked at animal protein and they found 7% higher odds of healthy aging if you had a sufficient animal protein intake. Okay, that's good. This is better. They looked at plant protein and they found a 38% higher odds of healthy aging, from 7% to 38%. That's a 31% improvement if you're replacing the animal protein with plant protein for healthy aging. Remember, that's 11 chronic disease states, mental impairment, or physical impairment. That's healthy aging. So you had a 38% better odds of aging healthfully. Okay, so let's go further into it. Let's look at the specifics. And they found plant protein was associated with higher odds of absence of physical function limitations and good mental health status. So those with the highest amounts of plant protein intake, not animal protein, had better mental outcomes and better physical outcomes as we age. So this is really important. But how much? So they looked at replacing animal proteins or dairy proteins or carbohydrates or fats with plant proteins. And for every 3% of energy replacement with plant protein, they found in healthy aging improvements up to 58%. Oh my God. Wow. 3% of the energy intake you trade out animal protein, dairy protein, carbs, or fats with plant protein, and a 22 to 58% increase possibility of aging better, aging more healthfully. Wow. To me, those are such significant odds. We should be telling people, wait a minute, you can preserve your brain health. You can preserve your physical health. You can age better. You can slow down the aging clock better simply by eating more plants. And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. You don't have to go completely vegan. Just a 3% energy replacement with plant protein, we're talking huge differences. Wow. Okay. But let's take a look at the exact foods. Are there specific foods within the plant kingdom that would do better? So this study is actually a 2017 study that looked exactly at that. What about green leafy vegetables and cognitive decline? So they found that the cognitive decline rate for those in the highest quintile intake of dark green leafy vegetables. Now, I have to laugh at this sometimes because the highest intake was 1.3 servings a day. That was the highest. Oh my God, I eat several servings a day of dark greens. And they found the slowing of the age process just by eating 1.5 servings of greens per day was the equivalent of having a brain 11 years younger in age. Imagine just adding dark greens, a serving and a half of dark greens, and having a brain that is basically functioning at 11 years younger than those people the same age as you who are not eating those dark greens. 11 years younger brain. Oh my God. This is cognitive decline, as looking exactly at cognitive decline and the plants. This is why these dark greens, which are loaded with polyphenols only are made from plants, right? Plants make polyphenols. Animals cannot make polyphenols. It's impossible. So this is where we're getting our polyphenols from. We're getting them from dark green, dark purple, dark red, dark blue, dark black. Any things with the dark colors, that's usually an indicator of high polyphenol content. How many of you want an 11-year younger brain functioning than those of your peers? Simply by including a serving and a half of dark greens or high polyphenol content fruits and vegetables. That's how easy it is to do this. Just increasing your diet increasing the plants in your diet, especially whole food plants that have these really rich high polyphenols. Now, I produce a supplement line, obviously, but I focus on specific nutrients that are super high in plants. Ahi flower, the richest source of omega-3 of any plant ever known. Omega-3 and omega-6, SDA and ALA combined. This is one of the most complete, across the board, well-studied omega sources of any plant in the world, period. It's why it won the Nexty Award right there for the best new ingredient of the year, but way back in 2017. N10s, our pre-workout. It's got 10. That's where it gets its name, N10s from. 10 different polyphenol-rich plant sources, including S7, which is 7 super high polyphenol sources. And then, of course, the 2 ones with mangiferin in it too as well. Polyphenols, these are the secrets. These are the things that keep plants alive, and these are the things that keep humans alive. That's why I wanted to put them in almost everything we do, from our proteins to our pre-workout to even our other supplements. Focus on these really rich, nutrient-rich plants. That way you can get the results, even at 61 years of age, that you're looking for in your fitness. You have better health outcomes, better cognitive outcomes. Over and over and over again, we see this in the research. I shared a whole bunch of studies with you. If you have questions, please leave them down in there. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up and give it a like so that more people will end up seeing this video. And eat your whole food plants and veggies. The more you eat, the better for you. The more you can live healthier longer. It's not just about lifespan. You can live a long time on life support, suffering the whole way. You can live a long time. Doctor pharmaceutical intervention. Yeah, it'll keep you alive, but it'll keep you suffering. I'm talking about staying alive, healthy. You know, I'm in the best shape of my life in 61. That's what I want for you. That's why I bring these products to market. That's why I bring this research to people's attention, to show you the truth about health and nutrition and fitness so that you can get the best life possible. You work hard, you put a lot of effort in to making a living. Why not enjoy that? Why not enjoy the fruits of your labor when you're ready to retire in a healthy, fit way? That's what I want for you. That's what I'm doing. That's what I have for myself, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. And I hope you will too. Thanks for watching. We'll be back. I will be with a guest of mine who wrote this book here, Weightless. Tremendous book by Dr. Frank Sabatino. If you haven't read it, pick up a copy. Do yourself a favor. It is loaded with good information. Not only how to lose weight and keep it off permanently, but how to maintain that weight and why that weight is so important for your overall health and your happiness and your cognitive health and your physical health. It's in there, loaded with research, but it's written with heart. That's why you see the heart right on the front of that page. He is one of the biggest hearted, kindest persons I know. Check out Dr. Frank Sabatino online. Check out his book. Get his book. Order his book. It'll serve you well, and it'll serve well those around you who get to enjoy you in a long and healthy life. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next week.